up on Sports Weekly. Can the Phillies protect their dwindling NL East lead? We'll update all the pennant races. Number 1 Florida State tries to knock the tar out of the heels. A complete college rundown is ahead. The Braves have one of the best rotations in baseball. What's it like to work with these guys? Ask pitching coach Leo Mazzoni.
I think that a great pitching staff makes a good pitching coach, and a good pitching coach doesn't mess up a great pitching staff.
We'll sit down with Frank Thomas in our Sunday conversation. The Big Hurt isn't always looking for the big bucks.
The money situation, I don't want to blow it out of proportion because I wouldn't have to be the highest paid player in this game to be happy.
Emmitt Smith must be happy. He's now the highest paid running back in football. We'll look back at all the negotiations. So stay tuned for Sports Weekly. No jacket required. A full hour is next.
Good morning, I'm Dick Schaff, and welcome to Sunday Sports Day, September 19th, 1993. 2 hours of news, views, reviews, and previews, highlights and sidelights, cheers and jeers. In baseball, the Phillies refuse to fold, the Blue Jays refuse to lose, the Giants hang in, and so do the Rangers. In football, Emmitt Smith is ready to run again, Joe Montana is ready to pass again, and Robin Roberts is ready, of course, to lead us through our opening hour Sports Weekly. And Robin, do you think Emmitt's had time to memorize the playbook? Do you think he's going to remember which way he's supposed to run?
No, I think he will. He also remembers where he put his bank book. There's not much to remember. You see an opening, you see Jerry Jones's face, and you hit it. That's it.
And it hands you money. It sounds like a good system to me.
I think it will be a good system, and we'll talk about that throughout the morning, Dick. But we'll step onto the diamond first this morning. And if you're locked in a pennant race, there's no better way to gain ground or lose it than going head-to-head. And that's exactly what the Phillies and the Expos are doing this weekend in Montreal. We'll pick up last night's game in the 8th. Phillies leading 5-1. Runners on first and second. Will Cordero, a 3-run blast to left off Tommy Green, his 9th of the year, cutting the Phillies' lead to a single run. Then, the bottom of the 9th, Larry Walker on third, representing the tying run, and a Mitch Williams fastball strikes out Mike Lansing. And then Williams gets Sean Berry to pop Weekly to right. Save number 39 for Williams, and the Phillies win 5-4. The Phillies had lost 8 straight one-run games. Tommy Green with his 4th straight decision. He's now 6-1 lifetime against the Expos. The Phillies lead over the Expos back to 5 games, and their magic number is reduced to 10. In the final game between these two today, Danny Jackson will go for the Phils, Kirk Reeder for the Expos. As for the American League, a late one between the Rangers and the Angels last night. Texas wanted very much to get back on the winning track, and they have a new Angel in town. Mark Langston had to feel confident with a 12-5 lifetime mark against Texas. That new guy, Chris, don't call me Craig James, the second pitch of the game over the field. Top of the 7th, now 5-1 Texas, and James isn't finished. He takes another Langston offering back to the same neighborhood, and the Rangers cruise to a 9-2 final. Chris James said because of the excitement and the travel, he hadn't slept since being traded from the Astros on Friday. Insomnia may be a new key for James. Let's check in on the Royals and the Mariners. The first, Chris Bosio pitched very well, facing George Brett, who rips the hard grounder. But Brett Boone makes the force at second. We're scoreless through 2. Bosio made only one mistake, and here it is. In the 3rd, to Felix Jose. His 6th homer of the year, 1-zip Royals, and that's all Kevin Appier needed. He went the distance, striking out Jay Buhner in the 7th. Run stands 1-0 KC, the final. Kevin Appier pitched a 3-hitter for his 6th straight win. It's his first shutout since September 3rd, 1991. 17 victories is a career high. Bobby Witt pitched 7 strong innings as the A's defeated the White Sox 3-2. Witt allowed 1 earned run on 4 hits to earn his 3rd straight win. And let's take a look at the AL West standings right now. The loss snapped Chicago's 3-game winning streak and reduced its lead to 3.5 games over the Rangers in the West. The Royals are back to within 6.5 games. As for the AL East, the Orioles are in the middle of their 9-game road trip. They can't get back to Camden Yards fast enough. Entering Saturday's game at Milwaukee, the O's had dropped 3 of their first 4 on the road. Bottom of the 7th, 3-0 Brew Crew. Mike Devereaux catches Kevin Seitz's fly ball. Darrell Hamilton tags up, and Chuck Merriweather says he beat McLemore's tag. McLemore goes nuts. Johnny Oates comes out. He goes nuts. and then he would get tossed, but he just keeps going after it. Takes off his hat. That's not enough. Takes off his jacket. Wait a minute, this is a family show. We can't show you anymore. The Brewers won by a final of 3-0. The Orioles are shut out for the second straight game. Angel Miranda and Jesse Orozco combined on a 4-hitter. Dave Stewart and Mike Timlin combined on a 7-hitter, and the Jays took advantage of 4 Minnesota errors to defeat the Twins 5-1. Toronto ties a season high with 7 straight wins. The Sox curse at Yankee Stadium lives on. Mike Stanley flied to left to apparently end the game, but a fan ran on the field. The ump said time was called before Stanley's hit. Well, Stanley got another chance. He singled. That key to 9th-inning rally topped off by Don Mattingly's 2-run single. We'll show you highlights of this a bit later. The win keeps the Yanks 3 games behind first place Toronto in the East. The O's have dropped 5 back, and the Sox are out of it now, 9 games back. And back to the National League. The Braves are hosting the Mets this weekend at Fulton County Stadium. Yesterday, Greg Maddux had a chance to join his teammate Tom Glavine as the NL's only 19-game winners, but the Mets came up winners instead, 3-2 in 10 innings. Maddux was 1 out away from recording his 2nd shutout and 9th complete game of the season. Meanwhile, John Burkett finally earned his first win in more than a month as the Giants downed the Reds by a final of 6-1. After losing 8 straight, the Giants have now won 2 in a row. The Braves' 5-game winning streak comes to an end. Their lead is now 3 games over the Giants. The marquee matchup last night in college football featured top-ranked Florida State and North Carolina. Either the Noles or the Heels would suffer their first loss of the young season. A record crowd of 54,000. Tar Heels fired up in the first. Jason Stanisiak looks to the end zone, finds Bucky Brooks, a great grab. The Heels led 7-0. Second half, Derek Brooks tried to fire up the Noles. Charlie Ward connects on the play-action pass to Kevin Knox. He breaks a tackle. He gets in from 33 yards out. Noles up 17-7. Later in the third, Mike Thomas replaced the injured Stanisiak. He's picked off by Derek Brooks. You've seen this before this season. He returns it untouched, 49 yards for his 3rd touchdown of the season. Florida State romps 33-7 in the end. Charlie Ward threw for 303 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Noles defense has allowed only 14 points in 4 games this season. Colorado tested again, this time by Stanford. Bill McCartney talking to Cordell Stewart. He would listen well. On the option, he dumps off to Lamont Warren, who goes in for the score. Stewart with a career-high 5 touchdowns. Colorado up by 10 in the 4th. Steve Stenstrom rolls and finds Justin Armour in the end zone. 38-yard score. Stanford draws within 3. 13 seconds left in the game. 3rd and goal. Watch this, folks. Stenstrom connects with Tony Klein. He's hit by Dwayne Davis. Is it a touchdown? Well, you got to talk it over. Take another look. Klein has possession. Oh, that's close to call. They call it a touchdown, though, and Stanford wins 41-37. Stenstrom tossed a career-high 5 touchdowns and completed 30 of 42 passes for 382 yards. We certainly are glad you decided to join us again this Sunday morning. And later, Frank Thomas will stop by for a Sunday morning chat. He has some interesting thoughts concerning some hallowed records, including DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. And speaking of the Yankee Clipper, after what happened yesterday at Yankee Stadium, George Steinbrenner may think twice about complaining about the fans in the Bronx. We'll explain next.
Wow. Wow.
Sports Weekly is brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers, who reminds you friends know when to say when. And by Drylock, the masonry waterproofer that's guaranteed to stop water.
Now for the rest of Saturday's college action, beginning with an SEC affair between Alabama and Arkansas. Bama's 25-game winning streak, the longest in the nation, never really appeared to be in danger. Barry Looney's pass is picked off by the man, Antonio Langham. He's going to make an unbelievable return. Going all the way for the score, and Bama would roll by a final of 43-3 over Arkansas. Virginia Tech and Miami. Frank Costa, in control, finds A.C. Tellison for the score. Canes win their 52nd straight at home. Irish hosting Michigan State. Kevin McDougal threw a pair of touchdowns, including this one to Ray Zellers. Irish eyes were smiling, 36-14. The Orangemen at Texas. Mike Adams gets the punt. He's off to the races. 54 yards for the score. Longhorns up 18-14, but Pat O'Neill can win the game. A 33-yard attempt. He crushes the Orange. Game ends at a 21-all tie. Tennessee and Florida. Freshman Danny Werfels threw for 3 touchdowns in his first start. This to an outstretched Harrison Houston. Florida is 20-0 at home under Steve Spurrier. Nebraska visited UCLA. Tommy Frazier finds Gerald Armstrong from 11 yards out. Cornhuskers in a squeaker by 1. Ohio State started strong against Pitt. Opening kickoff, Butler Benote gets it at the 11. He is not going to stop until he reaches the end zone. Buckeyes scored 28 in the first quarter, won 63-28. Joe Paterno and Penn State, their first Big Ten road game at Iowa. Carter rushed for 144 yards, and this 23-yard scamper, no problem. 33-zip is the final, Penn State. Why did number 16 Texas A&M want to host Missouri? This is why. Rodney Thomas, 3 scores. Leland McElroy, 3 scores. Aggies pound the Tigers, 73-0. BYU and Lavelle Edwards at Colorado State in the mud. Anthony Hill goes for 2, gets it off, but it's incomplete. Cougars win 27-22. Arizona State and Louisville. Cardinal Jeff Brome threw for 3 scores. 1 to Ralph Dawkins. Louisville upsets Arizona State 35-17. BC and Northwestern. Dennis Lundy runs in the 2-point conversion. Wildcats win 22-21. Georgia Southern, Marshall, Division I AA matchup. Will Brown makes a great leaping catch, and Marshall wins 13-3. Finally, San Diego State and Air Force. Marshall Falk ran for 106 yards and 3 short touchdowns. Aztecs win by a final of 38-31. So let's stay on campus for more college scores from Saturday. More from the major leagues, beginning with the NL. The Colorado Rockies attempted to tie a team record with their 6th win in a row at the expense of the Dodgers. They set an expansion record, or really an attendance record, 4 million on Wednesday. Dodgers and the Rockies, there you see Chris Jones going down. Pedro Estacio, 2nd consecutive shutout. Dodgers win 9-0. The Pirates and the Cards, we know Raul Cormier can pitch. Yeah, he strikes out Jay Bell on the slider, but he flashes a lumber as well. Doubles home Geronimo Pena. Then in the 6th, Cormier singles. Again, Pena scores. Cards cruise 8-1. Houston and San Diego, great night for Doug Drabeck. Strikes out Phil Plantier. Gets Billy Bean looking. Oh, tough high heat there. Drabeck has a career high with 11 strikeouts. Astros win 4-2. Florida, Chicago, 7th inning, tied at 5. But Sammy Sosa's high chopper gets through. 1 comes home. And the Cubs win by a final of 6-5. How about the Giants and the Reds? Todd Benzinger with one of his 2 homers on the day. A 3-run shot. Giants up 5-0. John Burkett took care of the rest. Gets Chris Sabo, one of 4 strikeouts for Burkett. Finally gets his 19th win. Giants win 6-1. Now for the rest of the AL picture, stepping up to the plate first, the Red Sox and the Yankees, a 3rd of 4 between these two, and this is quite a game. Buck Showalter's team down to their final out. Mike Stanley appears to fly out to left. Game over, right? No, look at the bottom of the screen. You see those guys go out there? Well, time was called when this fan ran out on the field. So Stanley gets new life, and what does he do? Of course, he singles to left. Yankees rally to within 3-2, bases loaded for Don Mattingly, and he delivers the dramatic hit. Andy Stankiewicz scores the winner. This is unbelievable. The Yanks stun the Sox 4-3. Toronto, Minnesota, third inning. Ricky Henderson singles home Ed Sprague. Jays would take a 2-0 lead. Dave Stewart, he would take care of matters from there on. Gets Revulé swinging. Dave McCarty goes down swinging as well. Stewart with 7 strikeouts. Jays win 5-1. About Chicago and Oakland, 8th inning, A's up a run, and Mike Bordick robs Ivan Calderon with a pretty play in the hole. Man, look at Mike Andretti. A's hold on to win by a final of 3-2. And in Detroit, 4th inning, Eric Davis goes deep to right. Boy, it's been great with the Tigers. Clears the fence, career homer 200 for Davis. Tigers win by a final of 7-6. He has found a new home there in Detroit. And coming up here on Sunday Sports Day, it's back to school for Bino Cook. Well, college, that is. Today, Bino takes a look at how good Florida State really is, and if there's a better player in the land than that man, Charlie Woolman. Now that we've seen all the highlights and the scores, we'll let Bino Cook have his say about yesterday's college game. So let's go back to Dick in New York. Dick?
Robin, Bino Cook is actually in New York, and the chop is back in fashion. In Atlanta for the Braves and in Tallahassee for the Seminoles.
They stole it from the Seminoles.
I know they stole it from the Seminoles, but they haven't stolen much else yet. Dion hasn't done too much for them. So far, Florida State has looked awesome. Are you awed?
Oh, yes. I think Florida State probably is the best team in the country if you had a tournament. But I don't think they're going to win the national championship. And I think the national championship will be decided when Notre Dame plays Florida State in November. The winner would play for the national championship. And also, I think the Heisman Trophy.
The winner will determine
I think Kevin McDougal will win the Heisman Trophy. I didn't say that a couple weeks ago, but I think that Florida State will lose at Notre Dame, and Kevin McDougal, the quarterback nobody wanted to start just 3 weeks ago, is going to win the Heisman Trophy. He's the John Hewitt of the 90s.
And the guy he has to beat out is Charlie Ward?
Yes.
Okay, last year, at about this time, we awarded the Heisman Trophy to Marshall
You
Faulk.
did.
Well, several people did.
You and Lee Corso and everybody else.
Me and others of my ilk.
Yes.
Yes. This year, we've already taken it away from him. We've said he doesn't have a chance.
Well,
can we be done this year, too?
No. He had a couple touchdowns. He had a good game yesterday. He can still get back in it, but I don't think he will win it.
Last night, Stanford in a wild game beat Colorado. Earlier in the day, Penn State crushed Iowa. Was last year's Blockbuster Bowl a preview of this year's Rose Bowl?
Yeah, probably. Probably is, because Washington can't go. Penn State under Joe Paterno, he's going to go to the Rose Bowl, be the first coach to win in the 4 major bowls. Rose, orange, sugar, cotton. Other coaches have been in it, but not have won. And he's going to go against Bill Walsh. Stanford, maybe the greatest coach of all time, except maybe for Rockne and Paul Brown. It's going to be, right now, Penn State's going to be in the Rose Bowl. We will say that.
Okay, who are your top 5 teams today?
Top 5? Florida is number 5. The team we picked to win the national championship. Steve Spurrier will be the first person to win the Heisman Trophy and also the national title. Number 4 is Miami, which will probably lose to Colorado this week. Number 3 is Notre Dame, and I messed that up. It's Notre Dame 4, Miami 3.
Okay,
you hurried me along there.
Okay, sure.
Number 2, Florida State, and number 1 is Alabama until they're beaten, and I apologize for the mistake.
You've still got 3 Florida teams in the top. How did you leave out Bethune Cookman and Florida A&M?
I'm not, despite having 3 teams in Florida, I'm not going to Florida as a tourist.
Stick around and watch the sports reporters Lupica, Ryan, and Leonard Coppett try to keep up with the Joneses and the Smiths in Dallas and with the pennant races in 4 divisions. But first, up next, a look at the races for MVP.
Back to baseball. It's a time of the year when talk centers around the pennant races or MVP honors, and many times the two go hand in hand. Barry Bonds was a clear-cut favorite in the NL in the first half, but he has cooled off tremendously, while Ron Gant has turned up the heat. Lenny Dykstra has Dick Schaap's vote, and you have to consider Gant's teammates Fred McGriff and Dave Justice. In the AL, Frank Thomas is the man. We'll hear from the Big Hurt a bit later in our Sunday conversation. He's batting 49 points higher since the break. He has some high praise for the Rangers' Juan Gonzalez. John Olerud's 400 chase has dwindled. Jack Edwards takes a closer look at baseball's individual races.
The Atlanta Braves continued to roll behind Dave Justice and Ron Gant, who have taken over the top 2 spots in National League runs batted in.
Ripped to left. This is going to go to the corner. It's off the fence. It's gone. It's gone. The Braves win. They win it. I don't believe it.
The duo sped past Barry Bonds in the Ribby race as the Braves wrested the division lead away from the Giants. In the American League RBI race, Frank Thomas has a comfortable lead over Albert Bell. Cecil Fielder's quest to become the first player to lead the majors in RBIs for 4 consecutive years appears to be over. It's getting tougher to determine who the most valuable Blue Jay is. John Olerud continues to lead the AL in batting, but he is the 3rd Jay after Joe Carter and Paul Molitor to reach the 100 RBI level. The Texas trio of 40-plus home run man Juan Gonzalez, Rafael Palmeiro, and Dean Palmer could join the flock of Jays over the century mark. AL Rookie of the Year favorite Tim Salmon climbed to within 5 RBIs of 100 with a grand slam, but he was lost for the season later in the game with a broken finger. Hide your eyes if you're squeamish. Moises Alou's season ended when he rounded first and broke his left leg in 2 places. The Expos entered their weekend series 5 games behind the Phillies and MVP candidate Lenny Dykstra. Dykstra has 20 more runs scored than Bonds and 30 more than any other National Leaguer. K-King Randy Johnson had a no-hitter into the 8th against the Royals, but Brian McRae broke it up. Johnson registered 15 Ks on his way to victory number 17. Jose Rio continues to hold the National League lead in strikeouts, and he is near the top in ERA. The K margin is 13 over Atlanta's John Smoltz. His ERA competition is Greg Maddux of, who else? The Braves. The big news, Big Dave. Dave Winfield joined 18 others in the 3,000 hit club Thursday night with his hometown team, the Minnesota Twins.
My greatest achievement so far has been winning that championship and having a big part of it. But as an individual goal or an individual accomplishment, this is number 1.
And I know he's going to the Hall of Fame, and I can just say that I scored a run on his 3,000 hit. That's all I can say.
And all that I can say is that future Hall of Famer Dave Winfield joined a select group when he smacked his 3,000 hit Thursday night, when he became only the 5th player to have over 400 home runs included in his 3,000 hit total. Way to go, Winnie. Willie Davis was a big hit with Chiefs fans with this circus catch. Ooh, catch the NFL Weekend Review next.
I don't think any player should hold out. I don't think that players should strike. I don't think they have the liberty to really do it, because the only thing they can do is showcase their talent, and most of them can only play 9 years. So my right and wrong is based on play first and work everything else out later.
As for others making noise in the NFL last week on the field, well, that does not include Joe Montana. He never took the field against the Oilers. The Chiefs didn't want to risk further injury to his wrist. Carl Ravitch looks back on Week 2, which turned out to be a reunion for many.
A week to remember. Reggie dominating his former team in the first half, only to see Randall Cunningham snatch away the win.
And when he rolls that way, that's when he makes things happen. And probably should have stayed up instead of trying to tackle him by his feet.
Jim McMahon throwing a touchdown and leading the Vikings over a team he once led to the Super Bowl title.
I've got a lot of respect for the players on that team, especially the guys that I played with. And I know they're a good football team, but it's just nice to beat the guy that's running.
And Gary Clark on the other sidelines at RFK. But sometimes injuries send a chill of reality through the men in uniform.
I was excited because it wasn't something that would take the whole year away from me. And having only 1 game in the next 3 weeks, you know, I'm looking and shooting for Miami myself.
Stuck on the sidelines returns in 3 to 6 weeks. After watching Lynn Elliott miss 2 of the 3 field goals he attempted against the Bills and seeing his Super Bowl MVP get intercepted at the goal line, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones couldn't bear to stay in the building, leaving coach Jimmy Johnson to meet the press.
Did you ever try to tackle Thurman Thomas? I mean, they've only had the best running football team in the league the last 3 years. They've got that, only had one of the best offensive teams in the entire league the last 3 or 4 years. I thought our guys were...
Oh, boy.
So Tuesday, after Elliott got his walking papers, a cagey veteran was brought into Dallas. But in this football town, would Eddie Murray fit in as the Lone Star kicker? Premiering tonight in Phoenix. You want offense?
Fires in the pass, throws for safety, caught it, 10, 5, touchdown, Jets! And safety down the middle.
Care for a little defense? How about great plays?
Jackie Harris trying to fight. Did he get it? Touchdown! Jackie Harris carried him into the end zone.
Sails back at about the 43, taken by Bailey there. Cuts to the far side, now comes back to the near 50. He's in the Redskins territory. 35, breaks it far side, 30, 20, 15, 10. It's a touchdown.
I went in the game thinking I wanted to be the unknown Jerry Rice of this game.
Did we forget the drama?
I had some important kicks, but never a game winner like that, where it was, that's the kick, and it's make or miss, it's over.
Here's the snap. Ball down. Kick in the air. It's good! The Saints win! Morton Anderson redeems himself. If you're looking for a big play, whoop! There it is!
Now playing at a stadium near you.
Well, there it is, eh? Well, much has been said about the Atlanta Braves' awesome arsenal. They just reload, don't they? Next, the man behind the Braves' success on the mound.
All right, what is the best day of your life?
I'm 7 years old, and my dad takes me to Yankee Stadium, my first game. Sat there the whole game next to my dad. Taught me how to keep score. Mickey hit one out.
Good day.
And I still have the program.
When I was about 18 and my dad and I couldn't communicate about anything at all, we could still talk about baseball. No, that was real.
When Braves starter Greg Maddux missed his scheduled start last Wednesday against the Reds, it marked the first time this season an Atlanta starter had missed a start, and the staff's durability may be part of the success of the Braves overall. In the past 3 seasons, Braves starters have missed only 3 scheduled starts. So we sent Pam Oliver down to Atlanta to talk with the man most responsible for the Iron Man staff, pitching coach Lee Mazzoni.
I think that a great pitching staff makes a good pitching coach, and a good pitching coach doesn't mess up a great pitching staff.
A lot of times we tease him for just being along for the ride, but I mean, he's had a big part in what we've done.
With the Braves' talented pitching staff, Leo Mazzoni never stops trying, teaching, and tinkering. He's thrown out some long-held pitching do's and don'ts and come up with a customized system he patrols like an armed guard.
You never see anybody get on the bullpen and throw without Leo looking over them and seeing what they're doing. And anytime you have that hands-on approach, you know, none of your effort is wasted. You always feel like you're down there and you're learning something, you're figuring something out.
What Leo Mazzoni has done is bridge what used to be considered 2 different approaches. By having his pitchers throw off the mound 2 days instead of 1 in between starts, he says you get the benefits of the 4-man rotation in keeping them sharp, along with the advantages of the 5-man rotation in keeping them healthy.
It's based on the theory of making the ball do something without going max effort and getting a little feel and touch on the ball, which will allow you to change speeds. And we feel that when you do that, you pitch better, and it also builds up arm strength.
Well, it keeps you strong, definitely, but I think the main thing is it keeps you in the strike zone. I mean, you get to maybe a little bit more accurate with your pitches.
I think over the course of the 3 years I've been doing it, my velocity has picked up on my fastball. All my pitches have gotten better.
The Braves pitchers throw a lot of innings, but the amount of pitches tossed per start are relatively low. In 1991 and 92, Glavine, Avery, Smoltz, and Greg Maddux, with the Cubs at the time, averaged over 240 innings a season. They're on the same pace this season, but the foursome's 93 average of pitches thrown per start shows the efficiency that contributes to their consistency and effectiveness.
A lot of times when you hear certain theories about pitchers that are not allowed to throw, I think that people will say that they're protecting the pitchers, and I think they're protecting themselves.
Maybe somebody should protect Mazzoni from himself. Here's an example of a man who lives with his pupils every pitch.
He's pitching every game, and we only have to pitch once every 5 days, and you know, he's out there grinding with us.
The game's decided or it's a little boring, you take a look at Leo, and it's a lot of fun to watch him for an inning or 2. He's rocking every pitch, and I mean, he's scary in there. I'm afraid he's going to fall down the stairs back there one of these times.
Things are much better for Mazzoni now than in those forgettable days in 1985 when success with any method was a mystery. Back then, he spent time as a co-pitching coach with an Atlanta team that finished 30 games below 500.
It probably was the most miserable year I've ever spent in my life in professional baseball, but I learned a great deal from that year. I'm so proud of what we have accomplished. Seeing those pitchers go to the post the way they have and how those pitchers have performed, I think it's just total satisfaction for everything that I've gone through since 1966. And it's the greatest feeling in the world, and it's the greatest time in my life.
Another factor that makes this pitching staff so good, they keep going and going and going. For the third year in a row, Avery is averaging better than 200 innings. It's a fourth straight year for Glavine, fifth for Smoltz, and Greg Maddux has averaged over 200 innings pitched for the sixth consecutive year. And Peter Gammons keeps going and going and going. He's back this morning. Thanks for coming in early, Peter.
Thank you, Robin.
Do you see some similarities between this pitching staff and maybe an old staff with the Orioles?
I really think so, Robin. Where Leo Mazzoni said he learned from Johnny Sain, I think it's very much like the Orioles with George Bamberger. If you think back to, they had the same style. They threw a lot of innings. They threw a lot between starts. Here, Mike Cuellar. The theory is the more you throw, not only do you maintain your arm, but you maintain the feel of the ball. And there's so many similarities. Here, Dave McNally between the Orioles and Braves. Great control. They didn't try to strike out a lot of people. They threw first pitch strikes. They kept their team in the game defensively. The great Jim Palmer and Mike Flanagan, another Cy Young Award winner. And, you know, you talk to guys like when Don Drysdale was at his peak and Bob Gibson, people like that, they threw between starts, they threw batting practice. I think they've gotten away with it. I think what Leo Mazzoni is doing with the Braves is going to be the trend. I hear more and more young pitchers say, hey, the more I throw, the more I grip the ball, the more I have the feel, the better I pitch.
Not to drop any names, but my namesake, Robin Roberts, did the same thing.
He was one, too, and that was one of the keys to his success. With the pitchers that he had in college, he told them, look, this is one of the reasons I'm in the Hall of Fame.
That's right. All right. Now let's also talk about, this is so unusual, George Steinbrenner, a little friction possibly with his manager. What's up with that?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about the possibility that Buck Showalter would quit. And it's my understanding it would happen under two circumstances. The first would be if George really humiliated Buck in public, which he hasn't done. The second would be if George demanded that Buck fire 2 or 3 of his coaches at the end of the year. Now, I don't think it's going to happen. I think, first, George appreciates the fact that Buck has not humiliated him. He doesn't run to the press every 2 days and look what George is doing. He's calling up during the middle of the night or whatever. But I think just as important, George Steinbrenner is very smart about the marquee. And he knows if Buck Showalter quits, he's going to have a job in about a day. Matter of fact, my guess is he'd be right across town with the Mets. Joe McIlvaine, he's Joe McIlvaine's kind of manager. The Mets' young talent is a little bit better than people realize, and McIlvaine's going to bring in a lot more young players.
Something we've been seeing a lot in recent years, and that's a lot of brawls in baseball right now. And they're getting a little more serious, and I understand that the players themselves are looking into that situation.
You know, this really excites me. I mean, it may not seem that big a deal, but Friday, the Players Association went to the 2 league presidents and said, look, the single biggest problem in baseball today is the violence. And their point is, these fights now have gotten really ugly. It used to be that people just went out on the field a little bit and milled around. But now, people are starting to get hurt. Matter of fact, I think the Orioles probably lost the division because Mike Mussina got hurt and Cal Ripken's knee bothered him for 6 weeks. I mean, things like this. Aaron Seeley wasn't throwing at George Bell. Of course, he did do a pretty good job getting out of the way of the punch.
He did.
But this whole idea that there has to be the machismo vigilante style of justice, that if something happens, you've either got to hit somebody or somebody's going to go out and run out to the mound. The players are saying, look, let's find a way to come up with some system under which players will be taken care of if someone throws at them, be it the umpires. The players want owners, general managers, players, and umpires to sit down at the end of the season, work out something so we don't have any more of these balls.
That is great news, Peter. Thanks a lot. And you might want to stick around to hear who Frank Thomas thinks may break Roger Maris's home run record in our Sunday conversation. But up next, get ready to face off as we look at whether or not Jerry Jones made a big mistake by waiting so long to sign Emmitt Smith.
Is it like a cold day in you-know-where? Do things all of a sudden seem topsy-turvy? Last week, we had peace in the Middle East. And a baseball game called on account of snow. And some college kid with his own late-night talk show. I'll bet there's a simple scientific explanation for all of this. In San Francisco, for example, Burkett and Swift aren't doing so good. It must be due to the shifting plates and disruptive magnetic fields down beneath the Earth's surface. They can do some real damage to those pitching arms. In fact, strange magnetic fields can scramble your brain, which explains Barry Bonds telling Jay he wants to be an actor. And how about that weather down in Texas? It's so hot and humid, not only did Julio Cesar Chavez suffer the first blemish on his record, but the world champion Cowboys are 0-2, and Jimmy Johnson's more than just hot under the collar. He's about to blow. So I guess if you consider that it's hurricane season in the Northeast, then there's only one word that best describes the storm that hit Yankee Stadium last week: predictable.
It's time for Face Off, our weekly war of words, wit, and wisdom. And now that Emmitt Smith has been the highest paid running back in football for 3 days, Cowboy fans are again hoping that this locker room scene in Pasadena will be replayed in Atlanta 1 year later. If it is, Jerry Jones may be cheered as the smartest owner in football. If it is not, he may be jeered as the dumbest. Was he wise to confront Smith, or was he stupid? Is Jerry the genius, or Jerry the jerk? That's the subject of our face-off today between Mike Lupica of the New York Daily News, who represents the pro-jerk view, and Bob Ryan of the Boston Globe, who favors the pro-genius. Lupica goes first.
Why should Jerry Jones be cheered? What did he do? What did he win other than an 0-2 record and nearly ripping his team apart? Emmitt Smith was not trying to establish a new market. He was just trying to get what the market pays for running backs of his staff. But what point did Jerry Jones prove?
Okay, Mr. Emma Goldman. I mean, you know, the defender of the oppressed, poor worker.
It's my nature.
Look, Jerry Jones didn't lose any. He lost 2 games. They're going to get in the playoffs. They're going to have as good a chance to get back to Super Bowl as they would have had if they were 2-0. No. He won in certain courts of opinion. He won big time. His peers, he took a stand. He took a stand, and they're going to respect him. And you know what?
What stand? He paid him what Emmitt wanted all along.
No, but he didn't give in right away. He took a stand on a principle.
So he buckled later on.
Let me tell you something else. Next year, when the others come trooping in,
you
the Novaceks,
you are so low.
And he's going to be able to look at them in the eye and say, you know, hey, don't blame me. I tried to protect your money by not giving it all to Emmitt. So don't be coming to me. I think that's pretty smart.
No, it's not smart, because if this division on his team cost them the second Super Bowl, then he's an incredible jerk.
It's not going to.
But, Bob, here's the point. What did he prove? What did he prove by paying him what Emmitt Smith wanted all along? Was Emmitt Smith asking for anything unjust?
Well, I think so, frankly, because he made a point that he can still say, I tried to make this point, that just because the Bills overpaid Thurman Thomas, that doesn't mean I have to be a jerk to him. By the way, that's the ruling thought process in sports today.
He's still running behind hockey goalies in Montreal, so, you know, it's not that true. I'll tell you, though, this is the first face-off which I know I can make an absolute decision on as soon as the game is over tonight. So, Robin, back to you.
And Frank Thomas has been facing off at the plate this season.
When I'm up there and there's men to be driven in, from time to time, I won't swing at balls that are all the strike zone. And this year, for the first time, I've learned to do that, and I've been an animal doing it this year.
A big reason the White Sox have a 3.5-game lead in the AL West, Frank Thomas, and I mean big. Only the Rangers' Juan Gonzalez has more home runs than Thomas, but nobody has driven in more runs than Thomas, who has his eye on baseball's Triple Crown. He talked with Jimmy Roberts about that and much more, including some of the game's more historic records in our Sunday conversation.
I motivate myself by wanting to be good. And as the players call me, the stat master on the team. I'm one of the guys that pick up the stat sheet every day and see who's doing what, and that motivates me. It gets me going. Certain guys had big games. I know I got to have a good game, and it's good because my interest for the game, it rises every day.
That's high and deep to
to left. Way back. You can put it on the board. Yeah.
What do you think the best average you could ever hit for would be?
Everything goes for me, probably 340.
What about home runs?
Maybe 50.
RBI?
You never know. Depends how many guys I got in front of me on the bases. This year's been a great year for me. I think I'm really learning still how to drive those runs in because I've been such a patient hitter for so long. When I'm up there and there's men to be driven in, from time to time, I won't swing at balls that are out of the strike zone. And this year, for the first time, I've learned to do that, and I've been an animal doing it this year. I would say I've driven in 25, 30 runs, a lot of pitches way out of the strike zone.
I read where you once said that there are some things that you'd like to do that have never been done before. Like what?
Just Triple Crown stats. You know, average power, walks. You know, those things, like I said, motivates me. And I want to be good. And
can you win the Triple Crown, do you think?
I feel I have a chance, but it's going to take a very special year to do it. It seems like, you know, one guy's on his game every year, and one guy's going to hit the high for average one year, one guy's going to hit high for home runs one year, somebody's going to have a big RBI year. So it's going to take a lot to win a Triple Crown in this league because there's so many talented guys around right now.
Can anybody hit 62 home runs, break Maris's record? I
think so.
Yeah?
I think Juan Gonzalez is going to break that record sooner or later. Watching that guy swing, he's just a pure home run hitter. And he's one of those guys who this year I think has raised his game to being an average hitter, and RBIs and everything else. But to me, he's a true home run hitter.
What about, let's say, a 57-game hitting streak? Can anybody break DiMaggio's record?
I have a feeling that will never be broken. I've had several 17, 18-game streaks, and it's like each day it was tougher and tougher because the guys were like coming out, hey, we're going to stop you today. And that's part of the game. It's just going to be very difficult to break that record.
What about the RBI record, Hack Wilson's RBI record? That's a lot of RBIs.
You never know.
Possible, though.
It's possible. You never know, though.
You and your wife have some pretty obvious cultural differences. You are a black man, a Baptist from the South. She is a white woman, a Jewish woman from the North. Does it cause you guys any problems?
There's constant stares anywhere you go, but I'm really not offended by it. We're different, and we know we're different, but at heart we're not. And we love each other, and we have a beautiful child, and we're expecting again in March, so, and I have a wonderful family.
The big hurt, from what I understand, still hurts about some slights that you've suffered in the past. You were cut from the 1988 Olympic team. That still bothers you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it bugs me, because I know I deserve to be on that team.
What about when you were in high school and you were, your senior year in high school, you didn't attract as much attention as you thought you deserved, right?
There was a lot of attention, but nothing happened. Had a lot of scouts daily there, but they were saying as a football player, just playing baseball. And I talked to a lot of teams, and I would have signed out of high school for anything. I wanted to play pro baseball out of high school. But they said, no, you can never be a major league ball player. I said, okay. I had to prove everyone wrong. I'm very fortunate that I went to Auburn on a football scholarship because Auburn really made me a man there. They really did.
You played for Pat Dye. I wonder what your opinion might be of what's going on down there now.
I really don't know what happened or about the payoffs and all this, whatever happened. It's just a good person was ruined in Coach Dye, and a great program was ruined.
College athletes treated fairly? Is that part of the problem?
For me, I feel the university should pay athletes a small amount. If it's either for clothing or whatever, I mean, they deserve something. The kids work too hard not to receive anything from the university when they're bringing in so much money for the university.
So it's down to maybe you and John Olerud for the MVP. What do you think? Do you deserve the MVP this year? You've come close a couple times.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. People are making a lot out of it lately. To be honest, yes, I feel deserving of the award this year. I've been very consistent, and I've stayed that way throughout the season, and this has been my biggest year so far, and my team's in first place.
Frank Thomas certainly knows how to put the hurt to opposing teams. Since the break, he's batting 49 points higher. He's still putting them out and driving in runs in the process. And His on-base percentage and slugging percentage, the best in all of baseball, not just the AL, tops among all big leaguers. Emmitt Smith now has a big-time contract, and suddenly, all is well in Big D.
It's kind of funny how these things turn around after we sign them. It is kind of funny.
Sports Weekly is brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately?
What will we talk about now that the Emmitt watch is over? And we had to be on watch 24 hours a day to keep up with the Joneses and the Smiths and the Johnsons. Here's what I mean.
In short, I really don't expect Emmitt Smith in for the first part of the season.
First of all, I want to be paid according to market value, to what I think I deserve. And I don't think I'm asking for an awful lot.
I don't think we can block out of our minds, as much as I'd like to, that Emmitt Smith is a distraction.
I think our position is logical. I think it's sound. I think it's understandable. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Emmitt has to accept it.
We got Jerry Jones. One thing about going to other teams, we have GMs negotiating contracts. See, the GM will be like, okay, sure, I'll give you that much. It's not my money. Here, it's the owner's money. I'll give you that money. But Jerry Jones, every George Washington leave his hands because he done squeezed George Washington down. They leave his hands to my, I'm glad to get out of his hand. And Jerry's like, here's $1. Here's $1, you know. He's choking his dollars.
If it's happening to Michael, it's happening to me, it's going to happen to someone else on our team also.
I'm sensitive to Emmitt's concern.
I'm not being insensitive to Emmitt's situation. I love the guy, and I want him here. And but if he's not here, that doesn't mean that I quit playing.
I'm actually just tired of talking about Emmitt Smith. We're all a little bit tired of talking about the Emmitt situation.
There's nothing new about that.
We won't be as effective without him.
There is some bitterness here, and for a number of reasons. And but those reasons are better left to myself.
We need him. He's a big part of this team.
We all agree that, you know, and not to dwell on Emmitt's situation, but we all agree that without him, that we cannot be as good a football team as what we were a year ago without his presence.
Coach, ESPN's reporting that Emmitt's been signed. Can you tell us anything about it?
I've heard reports like that for about 3 or 4 months now, so I'll believe it when I see it.
And I'm glad you're getting this, Emmitt. Are you happy?
Very much.
I am too.
Y'all make it harder than everybody, because every question you ask is, what about him? What about him? So I'm glad that's over.
How much did you actually give in accepting this deal?
I think I gave in a lot.
Millions?
I think I gave in a lot.
Millions?
I think I gave in a lot.
Okay.
Emmitt is very, very much a part of the tact and the strategy that is involved, and I do respect him for that.
It's kind of funny how these things turn around after we sign them. It is kind of funny.
Laughing all the way to the bank, isn't he? I don't think we should expect too much from Emmitt Smith tonight against the Phoenix Cards. Take a look at how these running backs fared at their first games back after holding out. In '91, Barry Sanders carried the ball 18 times for 42 yards. The rest on this list touched the ball 9 times or less and didn't do much with it when they had it. Keep in mind, I'll be back in 30 minutes with a Sunday morning edition of SportsCenter. Chris Berman will be by my side with a look at the Eagles. Will they be overconfident against a Washington team that lost its starting quarterback? And Norm Hitzges has an interesting look at why he knows who will win the Monday night contest between the Chiefs and the Broncos. That and a great deal more at 11:30 on SportsCenter, right after Dick Schaap and the Sports Reporters, which is coming up next as Sunday Sports Day rolls on. See you again in half an hour on SportsCenter.